like when a comedian can end every single program tearing off a woman's clothes and then chasing her around a park in her underwear, like that for me, in a world where women can't even walk safe in the parks, is pretty worrying.
It was a simple beauty pageant sketch, but as the cameras rolled, producers realized Benny Hill had gone too far. This wasn't just cheeky fun, it was career self-destruction.
You know what you are? No! You are supercalifragilisticexpialidocious!
This single scene sparked a national scandal that got him kicked off television forever. We will reveal exactly what happened on that set. The show seen in 140 countries. Alfred Hawthorne Hill was born in Southampton, England in the mid-1920s. His exact birth year is debated, with some records saying 1924 and others 1925. To put it mildly, his origins were humble. His father ran a store that sold surgical instruments, a serious job far from the lights of showbiz. But you see, performance was in his blood. The thing nobody tells you is that his grandfather had been a circus clown. That tradition of making people laugh had a quiet but powerful effect on young Alfred. Life before comedy wasn't very funny. He held a string of normal jobs. He drove cars, he delivered milk. He stacked shelves at a Woolworths, and he even played drums. While none of these jobs seemed glamorous, they taught him something vital. He learned how to watch people, noticing the small, silly things they do when they think no one is looking. This skill at observation would later become the very foundation of his humor. Then the Second World War changed everything. Alfred served as a mechanic in the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers, fixing engines and cars. Later, he worked as a driver and a searchlight operator, guiding massive beams of light across the dark skies to spot enemy planes. But his real talent shined through when he was moved to the Combined Services Entertainment section. He got up on makeshift stages and performed for tired, weary soldiers. These were men who needed a laugh more than they needed food or rest. It was here he learned a critical lesson. Comedy wasn't just jokes, it could be a lifeline. After the war, he polished this skill. He looked up to the great British music hall comics who could charm an audience with a mix of silly slapstick, song parodies, and clever wit. But his biggest inspiration came from an American radio host, Jack Benny. Alfred loved his perfect timing and how he could make silence just as funny as a punchline. As a tribute, Alfred Hill changed his name to Benny, and a new character was born. His first radio show, Variety Bandbox, hit the airwaves in 1947. People were interested, but radio couldn't capture what he did best. Benny Hill was a visual comedian. By 1950, he was working in television, the new medium that was perfect for his slapstick, his wild facial expressions, and his physical energy. He even shocked critics by playing Nick Bottom in a TV version of Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream in 1964, proving he had serious acting chops. The Benny Hill Show first aired on the BBC on January 15, 1955. It was unlike anything else on TV. Most comedy was based on clever wordplay, but Hill brought the energy of old-school music hall, blending it with the speed of television. Every episode was a wild mix of quick sketches, silly songs, and crazy characters. But the show truly exploded when it moved to Thames Television in 1969. This move was a game changer. Instead of short weekly episodes, Hill now created massive one-hour specials. This gave him a bigger budget and more room for elaborate musical numbers, complex parodies, and huge chase scenes. The new format was a smash hit. By the 1970s, the Benny Hill Show was sold to more than 140 countries. What many overlooked was that Hill's humor didn't need translation. A pratfall is funny in any language. His show became one of Britain's biggest cultural exports ever. The characters were unforgettable. There was Fred Scuttle, the bumbling man who could never speak clearly. And of course, there was Jackie Wright, the short, bald actor. Hill would famously tap him on the head over and over, and Jackie's blank stare made the gag funnier every single time. Wow factor. At its peak in 1971, the show was watched by over 21 million people in the UK alone. That's a staggering number, one of the highest in British TV history. That same year, his comedy song Ernie, the Fastest Milkman in the West, hit #1 on the UK singles chart for Christmas. He was, to put it mildly, on top of the world. And then there was the grand finale. Every single show ended with a frantic chase scene, all set to the blazing saxophone tune, Yakety Sax. The scenes were filmed with undercranked cameras making everyone run at high speed. Cops, nurses, old women, and young ladies would all chase Benny Hill through parks, city streets, and buildings. That theme song is now an instant global signal for comedy. In the 1980s, Hill added the Hill's Angels, a group of beautiful dancers. Their routines added sparkle, but they also started the first whispers of controversy. He was a global superstar, but as the 1980s began, the world started to change and a cultural storm was brewing. But as the show got bigger, the target on his back did too. Hill's final fatal joke. By the late 1980s, the Benny Hill Show was still a global hit, but back home in Britain, the mood was souring. For years, critics had called the show's humor old-fashioned. They argued that its constant chase scenes and suggestive jokes treated women like props, not people. Fans, of course, argued it was all just harmless fun, a cheeky postcard come to life. For a long time, those criticisms didn't stick. But then there was one sketch, the sketch that changed everything. The title of this video promises a lost scene so outrageous it got him banned. The thing is, it wasn't one scene that was lost so much as it was buried by the sheer weight of controversy. It became the symbol of everything critics hated. The scene was a parody of a beauty pageant, a classic setup for silly gags. Benny played a flirtatious host, making goofy comments as the contestants walked the stage. But this is where it all went wrong. The contestants were dressed in very skimpy outfits. They weren't characters. They had no lines, no jokes of their own. They were just there to be looked at, while Benny and other male characters made fools of themselves. This was nothing new for the show, but you see, the cultural context had changed. What felt cheeky in a more buttoned-up 1965 just felt tasteless and demeaning by 1987. The punchline of the sketch, which involved a mishap with one of the contestants, didn't land as funny. It landed as cruel. To many, it felt less like a joke and more like a mean-spirited jab. The laughter stopped. The lighthearted fun was gone, replaced by a feeling of embarrassment. People who had grown up loving Hill started to second-guess what they were watching. This sketch was different because it crystallized every complaint that had been bubbling for a decade. Media critics, women's groups, and even other comedians had been saying the show was objectifying, and now they had the perfect example. They could point to their screens and say, "See? That is what we're talking about." What was once seen as harmless fun suddenly looked like it was part of the problem. For a new generation of viewers used to smarter, sharper comedy, the joke wasn't just unfunny, it was, to put it mildly, cringeworthy. The outcry was immediate. Newspapers ran columns asking if this kind of material belonged on primetime television anymore. Broadcasters were flooded with complaints. Feminists used the sketch as proof of how pop culture constantly treated women as objects. It wasn't just a few people complaining, it was a loud chorus of disapproval. What many overlooked is that Benny Hill himself was a total perfectionist. He obsessed over every detail, every camera angle, every sound effect. He was known to spend hours in the editing bay, trimming frames to get a gag just right. He was, by all accounts, a quiet, gentle man. He genuinely didn't seem to understand what the fuss was about. He was still making the same jokes he'd always made. He just didn't realize the audience wasn't the same. This one beauty pageant sketch became the smoking gun. It wasn't the only reason for his downfall, but it was the spark that lit the fire. The sketch was the evidence, but the prosecution was just getting started. A legend on trial. As the controversy over the pageant sketch boiled, a new generation of performers was taking over British comedy. They were called the alternative comedians. They hated the old-school slapstick style. Their humor was sharp, political, and angry, and their leader was a fast-talking comedian named Ben Elton. Elton was the co-writer of the hit show The Young Ones and a star on Saturday Live. He became the voice of this new movement, and he had a clear target in his sights: Benny Hill. Ben Elton didn't just say Hill's jokes were old, he said they were dangerous. In public interviews and on stage, Elton argued that the endless chasing of half-dressed women on the Benny Hill Show created a culture that disrespected women. He claimed it encouraged a mindset that led to actual harmful actions against women in the real world. To Elton, Hill wasn't just a silly old man, he was a social menace. This was an atomic bomb dropped on the comedy world. The media, of course, loved the drama. A war of words erupted. Critics, who were already sick of Hill's gags, jumped on Elton's side. They used his words as proof that the show wasn't just dated, but actively bad for society. Finally, someone had said the quiet part out loud. The tide of public opinion, at least in the media, turned hard against Hill. But Benny still had his defenders. Many people were outraged by Elton's claims. The Independent, a major newspaper, wrote that Elton's criticism was pointless. They argued Hill was a relic, not a threat, a man from a different time, not a danger to the public. Another popular magazine, Q, made fun of Elton's moral grandstanding. They wrote that blaming Benny Hill for harmful acts was like accusing pianists of poaching elephants. His supporters argued it was ridiculous to connect a comedy sketch to real-world wrongdoing. They said comedy was just comedy, and it shouldn't be blamed for society's problems. But the cultural damage was done. The Broadcasting Standards Council, a new regulatory group, started paying close attention. The writing was on the wall. What was once mainstream fun was now seen through a moral lens. Seeing women being chased across a park wasn't funny anymore. It was an image that many felt needed to end. You see, this was a clash of two different worlds. In one world, Hill was still the king. His reruns were making millions in over 100 countries, especially the United States. He was loved. But back home in Britain, the comedy scene had moved on. The alternative comics were smarter, faster, and to the new generation, funnier. Benny Hill was trapped in the middle. He was praised abroad but attacked at home. His unique style, the very thing that made him a star, had become the #1 reason people wanted him gone. With enemies at the gate, Hill's fortress was about to crumble from within. The frugal millionaire, canceled, alone, and forgotten. The end came swiftly. By 1989, the Benny Hill Show was in deep trouble. It wasn't just the cultural backlash from people like Ben Elton. The numbers didn't lie. While reruns did great overseas, the ratings for new specials in Britain were dropping. Younger viewers were tuning out, and the show's core audience was getting older. But the thing nobody tells you is the real reason the show got the axe. It wasn't just morals, it was money. The Benny Hill Show was incredibly expensive to make. Each one-hour special, with its huge cast, elaborate sets, and complex film sequences, cost Thames Television about £450,000. In today's money, that's over $1.5 million for one episode. For 20 years, Thames paid that price because the show was a ratings monster and a global cash cow. But now, in 1989, they had a huge problem. The show was costing a fortune, the ratings at home were falling, and the public criticism was becoming a PR nightmare. The network had no choice. After 21 years, they unceremoniously canceled the Benny Hill Show. The ban the title of this video talks about wasn't from all of TV, but from his longtime home at Thames. And for Hill, it may as well have been forever. He was reportedly heartbroken. This show was his entire life. He tried to make a comeback. In 1991, he filmed a new special called Benny Hill's World Tour, Greetings from New York. The idea was to take his act to the international fans who still adored him. But it just wasn't the same. The magic was gone. The comedy world had moved on, and the special felt like a ghost of his former glory. It was the only episode ever produced. The tragedy of Benny Hill is that the man on screen was the total opposite of the man in real life. While his show was loud and flashy, Alfred Benny Hill was quiet, shy, and incredibly frugal. Wow factor. Despite being a multimillionaire, he never owned a house. He lived his entire life in small, rented apartments. He never owned a car, preferring to walk everywhere. His friends said he would mend his own clothes and buy cheap, discounted food from the grocery store. What do you think? Was Benny Hill a harmless genius or a relic who deserved to be canceled? Let us know below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.